Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Logan with West Desert Wheeler, and in today's video we're going to compare my rear steer Capra versus Axial's rear steer Capra. Let's go check it out. That's not good. That's bad. All right, so real quick, I want to give you guys a rundown on the differences of the control setup, because this is going to be a very important part of why I prefer one setup over the other. My setup. So I definitely want to give a huge thumbs up to Axial. I think that their independent rear steer control on their Capra is awesome. That's definitely the way you want to do rear steer, especially with an awesome unlimited buggy just like the Capra is. So taking a look at their car, theirs is the Nitto, and you get the awesome SCX 10.3 width Nitto, what are these things? Trail grapplers, MT, there you go. Badass tires in real life. They're really cool on the RC car. I like the width that they put on here. Of course, in the rear, they modified the cage so that you get a little more room, so you can go full droop and it never interferes with anything. The fuel cell's a little shorter as well to give you a little more clearance on the servo back there. Now, mine is a little bit different. Obviously, this is what mine looks like, dark green and black. The big 2.2 tires, but we're not going to focus so much on the size of the tires. Another big difference is the length of my truck. So mine's quite a bit longer. Mine's a 13.5-inch wheelbase. I think these are like 12.5 or 12.8. I don't remember offhand. They're not as long as this truck is though. My cage was the original Capra, so I actually just cut the rear out so that I could get full compression, and mine drops real low, but because I stretched the axles, my shocks are on more of an angle and it allows a little more down travel than the Capra does from the box. So, controllers, getting to this one. Spektrum 3-channel, the rear steer is controlled on the toggle switch right here. 5 positions, so you get straight, 50%, and full lock, both directions. Really awesome setup, I like it. It's really good for an RTR truck. My car has the Flysky GT5 setup in here. The biggest difference is my car still has dig. This car, you can't run dig with the factory controller. If you get this controller, you can run both, which is why I have this controller. So, up top, you get these 2 potentiometer dials, and as I twist the right stick, I get full control of exactly where I want to put the rears. So, if I'm into an obstacle and I just want to pressure that tire just a little more to the right side, I can just add a little bit, or a little more, or a little more, or I can go full crank. So I can put these tires exactly where I need as I'm driving around, which I really, really like. Another cool thing is I can put them wherever I want and let go, and they stay there. So big benefit there. Front steer, fully independent, just on the old steering wheel, pretty standard. My dig, I put on channel 3, locked and unlocked. On, off, real simple. I have a spare 3-position switch that I don't even have set up on anything on this Capra, but I use it for my other trucks. That was a lot of talk about the controllers on the trucks. Let's go hit some rocks and see how they compare. All right, guys, here we go with my Capra up first. So we're gonna go up this steep climb. I don't run any weights in my Capra, so the only weight I've really added is just the aluminum beadlock wheels, which does make a difference, don't get me wrong, but they are not running like giant portal diff covers or anything like that. So right here, it's time to get this rear worked away from this wall. So let's start kicking it out. As you can see, the full control here. I can also now start to turn back towards the wall to get a tire on it before my cage hits. Bring it up, and then I'm gonna rotate the truck right around. Even crab a little bit, and here she's gonna go, and it brought it right up. So let's take the Axial version and see if it can handle that kind of obstacle. Now, because I'm filming with one hand, I actually have to let go of the front steering to hit the control here. So you'll see my front end doing a little bit of weird stuff. That's what's going on. I'm letting go of the front steering to get the rear steer of what I need to do. So here we go, climbing up. Handled that climb no problem. And then we got to start bringing that front tire into the wall and driving it up. Going to use all the articulation available. Look at that, this car flexes up so good. I actually used a good line here to just get my tires kind of where I wanted them. And then we're going to start to pivot it around. I think it's going to walk right up this no problem. Dang, looked good on the Axial just like it did on my car. So far so good. The independent control is what you want on a rear steer car. You're going to hear me say that a lot because I really mean that. All right guys, this is one of my favorite trails out in this area that I came up with, and this obstacle in particular is one of the hardest on the trail. So the key here is that the Capra has no front overhang, so it's able to kind of wedge itself up in here, no problem, get up on that rock with the front tires, and then you can start working it around a little bit. So you can use your rear steer to keep you planted, kind of crab through this section while this car is super off camber. Bring that rear back. Oh, just not liking that. My front end kind of just started going too far up. Oh, it might go over right here. Ooh, barely saved it. Let's see if we can wiggle the front end over a little. And there we go. Got the car to settle back down. Use that rear steer to push the car up into this rock and drive up and out of here. Sorry about that view. I wasn't quite on point with the camera there for a second. Okay, something I'm a little concerned with here is just how there's no weight on the bottom of this truck out of the box. I actually want to start working my rear down just a little bit because I think it's going to help me stay more stable. And then drive the front end up into the wall, into that pinch, and then work it over onto the other rock. There we go. So we can start crabbing over into the obstacle, just like I did with my truck. And we don't want it to go down any further than that. And you guys saw, like, mine got sketchy here too. This is a hard obstacle. A little bit smaller tires here to try and overcome these obstacles. Just about tipped, but we got it done. Now we're real sideways up here. Trying to wiggle the front end to get it come down, but not quite working out for us. I don't quite want to use the rear steer just yet. Gonna mellow crab that 50% rear. This front suspension's too light. It's unloading. Ah, I lost it again. So, you know, I don't know if it's there for this truck. Like I mentioned, my fear here is, it's grabbed onto my hand. There we go. My fear here is just not enough weight down low to kind of make that suspension articulate. Maybe with that little spring mod I've talked about on the Capras, maybe that would help. So I'm going to say that this truck can't do that, but that's all right. The wheelbase is different, the weight is different. There's a reason, and I understand why it won't do it, but unfortunately not making this climb. All right, guys, so this may be one of those climbs where I was mentioning earlier, when you just want to lean into it just a little more to get up through an obstacle. You get our rear out of that hole first. Sandy climb from the bottom. And here's what we're working with. There's a ledge on the right side of this notch. So you have to get your fronts up there and balanced, but then the rears have to follow the original crack. Right there, I just leaned into it more. A little more. Just to try and get it to balance and push up straight. So we're climbing in a little bit of a crab here, but the car's going straight. Then we gotta go back left and then follow the wall up. So this is what I'm curious about, is if the rear steer of the Axial version can handle this kind of obstacle where you need real precise tire movements to get it to work right. One thing I definitely need to mention here is that mine is brushless with a Spektrum censored brushless system. That's the separate ESC and motor. It's 2100 kV, and I'm also using the higher end Spektrum servos, so tons of torque on these things, which is why I can get in these V notches and still turn no problem. The Axial is running a brushed system, 35 turn motor. Not a bad system at all. You can still get out there and have some fun with it. But once you run a censored brushless system, you'll understand why I run them in all my rigs. There we go. We were able to get that tire out of that overhang. So now we got to get our fronts planted where we need them. Slowly getting there. Already need to turn into the wall on the bottom, just to try and get the truck set up where we want. So there we go. Now we're in that mellow crab on that climb. Going full lock on the rear to try and get it to come up. See, it's somewhere between that half and 100% turn on the rear. If I go 100%, it's too much. There we go, a little bit of work back and forth on the rear. I'm not driving the front is my problem here. And there we go, it got up and out of it. So very cool, it did handle it. Not quite with as much finesse, but you can't finesse it like I can. So I'm gonna give that one a full pass though, it did good. You got it through. All right, this one can be very challenging if you don't get it right. So what we're doing is we're gonna drop down into this crack, and then you gotta turn and get it going downhill. Trying to get the camera to stay out of the sun. So I'm gonna start initiating my turn here. I'm gonna set the front tires down. Got the rears kicked over just a bit. So right here, I'm gonna use dig on my car just to kind of illustrate that with a different controller, you can use dig. Then we're gonna go back to 4 here. I don't wanna go too crazy because I don't wanna make this too unfair. But to be fair, the 4-wheel steer Capra has dig, it's just not set up with air controller. So, tire way up in the air. If the car shifts too much, it will roll forward. So you can push the rears in different directions. Good, I want it to fall backwards rather than forward. And then try and work the front end down using the servo. Perfect. And you can wiggle the rear steer servos as well. That'll make a big difference depending on where you're at. But there we go, we pulled it off. We dropped in, got turned, and never flipped. So pretty good work on the Capra. I will give it to this Capra. It's easier to drive one-handed because mine, I have to use my second hand to turn that knob. Whereas this one, I can drive with the front steering with one thumb and then adjust the rears with one thumb. Okay, well, the grill kind of saved her here. So bring the front end up, push the rear down. There it goes, I pulled it right out of it. This is not looking good here. Trying to get it to settle. Gotta just bring that front tire up, kind of in a crab. There it goes, it settled down. That's what we wanted. So right here. The servo isn't as fast, so trying to get it to wiggle off of stuff is a little harder to do. There she goes, it's working good. And then I want to give it full rear steer to get it to come off this ledge, drop down, nice and smooth, bring that rear back, and we're out of there. So pretty well done by the Axial as well. Really can't say one did one better than the other. This should be a fun one where all 4 tires are very important in their placement because of the off weird ledges and whatnot on the way up. So just working the car through this one. I don't expect it to stop this car. I think it should cruise right up this. There we go, crab out of there. And there we go. Let it work a little more before I bring it back. And then twist out of it. Okay, you don't want to drive with your rear steer turned too sharp underneath you on a steep climb because it will want to flip over on itself, just so you know. It's the same way with the real buggies. There we go, pushing its way up the next ledge. This looks like a pretty tough ledge actually, because you're double faced on it. So you're gonna have to climb it a little bit, one tire at a time. And right here, it's gonna push the whole car down this ledge. Watch. Front's not gonna stick. Yep, it started to let go. It's gonna roll if I don't stop. See, but backing up, I can use that rear steer to correct the angle that the car's coming off that ledge. So a rear steer is a huge help right there. So let's come back towards myself. I want to kick the rear out like that, get it up, and then bring it back towards me. That's really going to secure that back tire up on top of that ledge. And then we can turn the rears back into the ledge and try and pull that last tire up. There she went. It's crabbed out, straighten up, we're done. Definitely a tricky climb there, but with the right driving, you can get it done. Long wheelbase 2.2 Capra. So right here, here's a good point. My front end's starting to get light. If I were to just give it throttle right here, it's going to push the front end down across the hill. If I turn my rears downhill, it's going to push the car across the ledge. Like right here, if I give it gas, it's going to push the front tires straight. They're not going to turn. Watch this. See, they're not climbing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to crab back to where I was. See, not climbing. We'll point them all up. There it goes. I was a little bit past where it was going to save me at that last one. That's not good. That's bad. Ah, that hurts, man. Pretty sure I broke a portal on that fall. I'll tell you what, I'm glad it's my car, not the one I borrowed. I think that back right portal knuckle's broken. Let's go take a look. Here she goes. Broke my housing right there. That was a hard slam. Yeah. Let's see, back left, winner, winner. I called it from the top. I think that back right portal knuckle's broken. Break any of my other stuff? No, all seems pretty solid. $10 housing. She'll be back on the rocks soon. What do you think, Sydney? Snapping knuckles on portals, never fun. All right, broken car and all. We're just gonna go ahead and cruise up this climb because it still can. Big tires help so much on these big ledges. Cruised right up that. Well, dudes, with the broken car, I think we're gonna call this a video. I think the important thing to remember here is rule number one. If you're gonna roll and break stuff, get it on camera. I'm probably gonna cruise down to those affiliate links like I'm always telling you guys about, pick one up, and that will help me out. Just like if you buy some parts, it will help me out as well. What do you think, Sid? Good dog. So guys, I definitely don't want this to be a slam on the Axial 4-wheel steer Capra. If anything, it's the total opposite. If it can keep up with my fully built Capra, it's doing something right. Obviously, there's a few situations where it could use a couple upgrades here and there, but any RTR truck can use some upgrades. I think Axial hit this one out of the park. I love 4-wheel steer on my rigs, and I think they did a great job. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit the merch links, the affiliate links. It will help me out, and I would greatly appreciate it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.